Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now?
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Ready? Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and I hope that your weekend has been a very blessed, safe, productive, and enjoyable one as we invite you to be a part of the discussion. Honored that Mr. Daniel Lee, the manager over the off-rig for Consumer Affairs and Public Education, reached out to us so we were able to have this discussion with the great leadership over at off-rig. You want to know what's going to be shared? Well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome, and thanks so much. And today, as we try to engage, inform, and be timely, we're always receptive to the various government entities that come forward with information. In the studio, we have the Executive Director for Energy, Mr. Greg Anderson, over at the Off-Rig, the Chief Fuels Inspector, Mr. Duke Monroe, and the Fuel Analyst, Dwayne Tucker. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming on board. And I think there are certain trigger points in our society that inflame us. One is, what do you mean I can't go fishing? That's a big one. I think that goes on the top. The other is if the chocolate supply is interrupted. Probably after that, it's probably fuels and cost of living, but maybe not. Mm-hmm. But all jokes aside, Mr. Monroe, thank you again, and to your colleagues for coming. And in a time like this, when we see what's transpiring globally, 2 years or 2 centuries, depending on how it feels to you, these last 2 years have been challenging for people getting adjusted to things, to appreciating that their food security could be threatened, their employment, their very economic situation, even their familial relations, and now with a potential war that could move beyond the borders of Ukraine and into Poland, and then by extension, perhaps the rest of Europe and the world. Who knows? That level of uncertainty could bring greater anxiety to many of us. So let's get the crux of the matter. So thanks very much. Fuel, they say, is the lifeline to life, huh? That's what they say.
Thank you, Sterling.
All right, but good afternoon, thank you. Why, from the Off-Rig's perspective, we saw the press release recently, but why is this so crucial to us? I mean, we're just a speck on the map, and we just take what's given to us and, be quiet. If they want to hear from us, they'll ring a bell. At least that's what they tell us, all right? Or maybe not.
Let me start out by saying thanks on behalf of my colleagues and the entire Off-Rig office for giving us this opportunity to come and at least address some matters as it relates to fuel prices, fuel supply, and hopefully take some calls, provide some clarification. I believe it's very opportune and timely for us to bring this sort of clarification. As you rightly pointed out, there's a lot of anxiety. We understand there is some element of tension in terms of where fuel prices are going. But we at OFREG, we are committed to the people of Cayman. We are Cayman. We are not just an entity that sits and, as some say, out of touch with certain realities. We are on the ball with these things as far as practical, despite some of our limitations, to ensure that these commodities, as you also alluded to earlier, that touches on every aspect of life, is really efficiently managed and regulated in the Cayman Islands. So today we're going to talk a bit about, as you pointed out, what was outlined in the recent press release and general matters relating to fuel prices. The assurance we wish to give is that prices in Cayman are based on information we have that comes into the island, reviewed by us, and movements of prices accord with those international price trends. That's an obligation we have under the law, and we take it very seriously. We do understand and appreciate the topic can be somewhat complex, and it can be disconcerting. It sometimes can actually lead to social issues as we pay attention to how this type of event would affect jurisdictions around the world. So we take very seriously in terms of ensuring fuel prices in particular reflect what they should be, and not more than that. The one very clear statement we wish to reaffirm is that fuel prices in Cayman Islands will be based on the actual cost of the product that comes into the island. There is an element of concern that the timings of increases seem to increase when prices in other jurisdictions, particularly in the U.S., are increasing. Largely that is based on coincidence, and we are also looking at ways in which we can bring some more clarity, make that process a bit more transparent in terms of how price movement occur and the level of price changes in the jurisdiction. Of greater relevance is the recent surge we've seen in prices that's affecting the globe. I really want to start off by saying that fuel prices have been increasing from the beginning of the year. So all the imported fuels we would have seen from January to now, from December to now for that matter, has been increasing. Price changes usually takes on a bit of a lag, and that's for some other factors which, if time allows, we can get into during the course of the discussion. And that depends on how the companies manage their inventory. So you may actually see a price change last week that is reflecting the cost of product that was imported 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was reflecting the cost of product that was purchased maybe 2 weeks prior to that. So all of these things roll up into what relates, what manifests itself at the pump. But the price change you would have seen last week in particular, which is largely the cause for some of the anxiety that we're seeing and the concerns, and rightly so. That's it's really those price increases are based on product that was imported in February by the two entities. Hopefully we'll talk some more about that with time, but I'll just pause to allow for any questions.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Monroe. And this is where maybe as a public, as we listen, we start to appreciate that an understanding of how the prices are set, where we get the fuel. And as you reference, the fuel comes in now, it's in supply for a period of time, and then it's used, then more fuel comes in. From that perspective, is OFREG always advised of when the shipments arrive? So, let's start with that. So do you know the tankers come in, there's one tanker that fills up the supplies there. Do you know when it's coming in, and how does that work?
Thanks, and again, I know you're going to ask some of the right questions and the tough questions. Please do, because I think it's going to go a very long way in bringing clarity.
Thanks.
We are required by law to obtain all information relating to fuel imports. Products imported in excess of 35 gallons is by law required to be reported to the office, and the information that is to be supplied include the invoice, the
Mm-hmm.
cost at which it was paid for, where it was loaded from, the quantity, and some other information as it relates to the quality of the product. So we obtain that information from the suppliers based on every batch of import. So we are notified by the importers. We are also notified by our colleagues in other agencies that is involved in shipping and importation of fuel. So we obtain all that information from.
And we know, and whether this applies, this clarify first, but we know in accounting it's either the first in, first out way back then, or the last in, first out. So do we know what sort of method or does the law provide how the fuel companies are supposed to dispose of their inventory?
The law does not specify. The law does not mandate the accounting method they use, but we are aware of the method used. The methods used by the importers. So all the rubies, the refuels. Well, of course, in the smaller cases, whatever is there, that's what's sold. So we are aware, and those methods, just to provide some perspectives, it's actually the weighted average cost as well as the first in, first out method by the importers.
So for those who are listening and they get a shipment in December, that would hopefully be the first one that is used up, first in, first out. And then hopefully they'll know whether that lasts a week, lasts a month.
Correct.
Next shipment comes in. We get shipments regularly, like how frequently? Every week, every day, every month. Normally, when weather permitting the supply, is the shipment fairly consistent? How often do we get it?
Yes, thanks for your question, Mr. Ebanks. In terms of the shipment,
Just pull that mic for me a little bit close to Mr. Tucker, if you can. See that, man?
Yes.
It's like the LA, the mics move around. If you have somebody Mr. McLean slap his mic around, you would think he was at Coral Beach.
Yes, apologies. So in terms of the shipment will usually come in depending on the product. Diesel will certainly be at least once per month for soil rubies. In terms of gasoline, depending on the product again, it could be once per month or once every 2 months.
Okay, all right. So we have a fairly good supply. And thanks for that. Now, what about the origin? I mean, we know it comes in. Where do we normally get our fuel?
Most of the fuel comes out of the U.S. Occasionally, we will also take fuel from Bahamas. There is a bulk terminal, a transshipment terminal there. No refining, just large capacities, trading fuels from various points. The bulk from the U.S. and some of it from Freeport, Bahamas. Okay,
and then the pricing. Maybe we can understand how prices, how the duty is calculated, and perhaps even what the duty is, because some of us may not even appreciate it. Would that help in getting the public an understanding of it?
Sure. So the duties as set out in the customs tariff law is for and again, thanks. We just have to just keep reiterating the thanks to you, because it is questions that we face that we would clarify today, and tomorrow we have to clarify it again, and sometimes the next day to various audiences, just to really drive it home. So there are various duties which is applicable to the types of products imported. The two products of concern, diesel and gasoline. Greg will speak to the duties on fuel that is consigned for CUC, but for the general public, diesel is at 85 cents per gallon and gasoline is at 75 cents per gallon.
Okay, and then when the tankers come in and they bring in a certain amount, you'll help me make sure I understand it correctly, but let's say they bring in 1 million gallons, or do we know how much it is, and then they pay duty on the amount that is there, or is it on their cost? How is the duty assessed on their shipment?
Thanks for that. Duty is assessed purely based on quantity. It's not a value added. It's not a value added duty. So, just as you said, 1 million gallons, every gallon pays 75 cents in the case of gasoline. In the case of diesel, for non-CUC, it will be the 85 cents per gallon.
Okay, and we know that in some jurisdictions there are price controls. Just for clarity, in the Cayman jurisdiction, the shipment comes in, the duty is paid, sent to their retailer for distribution. The price at the pump is X. who sets that price? Are there price controls and the like?
That's probably the most expensive question you've asked so far. In the Cayman Islands currently, we do not have the price control that you would see in jurisdictions such as Barbados and Bermuda and Bahamas, where a formula is set. The various input goes into that, verified by a government entity or regulator, and then that's a price that you will see at the wholesale level and then at the retail level. We are currently working towards determining what's the best regulatory model for the jurisdiction based on all these concerns and based on what really makes economic sense, its socioeconomic impact, etc. We're going to come up with what is the best approach. What we currently do is actively monitor. We have an obligation under the Fuels Market Regulation Act that speaks to ensuring local fuel accords with global price trend, and this is what we do to the level best of our effort. We ensure that what comes in and those various layers of cost that you talk about, to really keep it simple, we ensure that those are stacked on the import price and then that goes out to the market. If there are significant variations, so the price comes in at X and we should be adding Y and Z to the cost and give you a sort of a ballpark price. If that price is shown to be very different or depart significantly from what it should be based on these, let me call it established margins, etc. in the jurisdiction. Even established is not a good word, but the traditional margins, we would then have the ability to probe that and can direct the entities to take measures without actually imposing what the per unit price should be at the pump.
Okay. Just let's respectfully pause, take this first break. We'll come back, we'll invite some callers in, we'll talk. I was hoping Mr. Anderson, as Mr. Monroe alluded to, maybe we can speak specifically to the CUC, since that is a little bit of a different sort of approach so that people get to appreciate it. To our listeners, we invite you to stay tuned.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drportercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
The Cayman Islands government is honoring our uniformed services during its National Heroes Day Awards ceremony in Cayman Brac, Saturday, 19th March, hosted by the Honorable Premier and the Minister for Culture. Uniformed Services personnel, past and present, will be recognized at an invitation-only event at the Aston Rutty Civic Center. Watch this year's National Heroes Day Awards ceremony on the Brac from the comfort of your own home on the CIG Facebook page, CIG TV, cable and YouTube channels. For more information, email the protocol office on national events at gov.ky or call 244-1780.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, Mike. And thanks very much for joining us in the studio. We have the Chief Fuels Inspector, Mr. Duke Monroe, the Executive Director of Fuels, Mr. Greg Anderson, and the Fuels Analyst, Mr. Dwayne Tucker. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And to our callers as well who are listening and participating, we do have a call line process. We continue the discussion. Let's first start with going to the phones. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, man. How are you today?
I really don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to make it better for you. In the name of Jesus, right?
Hopefully.
There you go.
As this is the first time that I'm able to hear from Radio Cayman in about the last 2 weeks. And first of all, I put it down to being nearly 70 years old, nothing about anything. But seems like other people are having problems too, and I'm a little ticked off now about the whole thing. So I asked if the people from Off-Reg had a specific topic. They said no, they're just from Off-Reg. So I'm just saying to Off-Reg, I'm having, me Charlie Pierce, having problems. The hero people were picking up Radio Cayman. See what it can do for us, because it's not just me one.
Okay. Well,
I am being muscled out as Radio Cayman by forces a little higher, a little heavier, a little more determined, a little more aggressive. Something going on, and if you can't facilitate me on this band, then I am left in the footsteps of Mr. Dolan Hunter. Give me one all for myself.
Okay. Well, what we'll do, two things. The Off-Reg is here, but specifically we're focusing on fuels, given that that's quite a topic of national interest. But to your point, perhaps Off-Reg can speak to that, they do have you remit as well of radios and internet and all the different things.
I thought so.
Right, and
maybe just take a little note. There's some more people, you know.
Yeah, we are aware of that. Every day came on. We have, and more of perhaps of our listeners that make that representation to Off-Reg relative to the challenges of recent of getting the reception. Perhaps it's something that can be, managed properly to accommodate all of the new increases into the market. But I'm sorry that you're one of the growing number who seem to have experienced a bit of a difficulty getting the reception. But I'm confident that it'll be resolved very quickly, amicably, and to everybody's satisfaction.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
You're most welcome. But see, have a good afternoon. See, you will be better. Yeah, God provides, But this is probably one of the many reasons. Off-Reg, what is it? The Utility Regulation and Competition Office.
That's correct.
And you cover everything. The only thing, thankfully, is that you don't regulate the supply of chocolate, but that's okay. So I take care of that.
Okay.
And maybe at some point, if I might be forgiven for publicly extending the invitation through perhaps Mr. Lee to have you on again to talk about the different sectors that you regulate and just give the public an education as to why you do that, how it works. But today, let's focus on fuel.
Absolutely. Welcome to open it.
All right. We'll arrange that. I'll have Mr. Lee's people call my people.
Okay.
As we continue the discussion, fuel affects us. We go to the pump. I've had friends and family who just, even this morning, a wonderful lady said, her increase probably amounts to almost a 20% increase in the price of putting fuel in her vehicle. Now, 20% to some people may sound a lot. If it's $5 or if it's $50, it's still 20% relative to your fuel bill. But as a percentage, that's significant, even if the dollar value, may not seem like a lot. But it is in essence. But from CUC, just to repeat, make sure I understood it, Mr. Monroe shared, the fuel duty on gas is 75 cents, on diesel was 85 cents on each gallon. And then CUC has a consignment, so they have a, let me not assume. Tell us how CUC works and what happens there.
Well, I can't promise to tell you how CUC works, but
I thought you wouldn't.
First of all, thanks for having us, Dwayne. The fuel duty that's imposed on CUC is 25 cents.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be 75 cents before, and I think the government realized with one fell swoop of the pen that they could improve the lives of Caymanians by reducing the import duty on fuel, because CUC burns the most fuel on the island, diesel of all that is imported. And it has contracts with both providers, both Sol and Rubis. And one of the things the CUC also has that has been enshrined in the way we regulate them is that they have to have a 25-day minimum supply of fuel. Another thing that we've been doing, and I'm talking from back on the Electricity Regulatory Authority days, was a fuel volatility management plan to try to cater for these kind of
swings.
Wild swings in fuel prices. And we have continued that under the off-reg umbrella with CUC. So we've we approved a contract, the plan for them back in 2021, which is in effect right now. And so at this point in time, CUC's fuel is hedged at about 20% of what the prices used to be previously. And so that gives the consumers a bit of a cushion, but it's not going to be a cushion that is going to be extended for the rest of 2022. This fuel volatility management plan, the hedges are done on a rolling basis. Of course, you want to purchase the fuel at the correct price point. And so, as we said, you have this volatility, and volatility means wild swings.
Right.
And so you want to get in the right price point to ensure that consumers benefit from it. Right now, the latest report I have is that we're at about almost $1 million in credit for fuel purchases for consumers through this fuel volatility management plan. So that allows those costs or savings to be passed.
Because of the hedging?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So with that now with CUC, we see that with the other consumers, the fuel comes in, it's distributed. CUC has sort of a special, I want to be careful with my words, we know what they're getting, theirs go directly to them, so we can know the quantity. We should be able to more easily manage the duty and the like. Is that as opposed to being all sort of commingled with everybody coming in and going to everywhere? CUC is a little bit more specific?
Yeah, CUC has direct lines from both, from I think it's Sol, the pipeline direct, that's been there for several years, over 20 years now.
I think they get paid to, well, so I guess we can maybe talk about another thing.
Yeah.
Specifically focus on them and have them on air with us so that there's a level of objectivity.
Right. And we take it a step further, because one of the things that we do is that the CUC has to submit monthly reports to us of the fuel consumption of the engines. They have to ensure that the engines are run at optimum level, most efficient level, so that they burn less fuel or the optimum amount of fuel, while simultaneously reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that would be produced. So those are what we have. We have the fuel volatility management plan, and then we have this optimum threshold at which those engines should be run.
Yeah. I don't want to focus primarily on CUC, but many would probably, and only in the absence of them being here to sort of counter, but also not to get distracted, with just the general concept of fuels and the pricing. But one question that always sort of eludes the auditor and the accountant and many of us, CUC gets the stuff, it uses up as fuel. Do we know how it uses it up? They say they use a gallon. Well, can be verified. Your inventory in your shop, you're selling lead pencils, and you go in the back there, you had a box, and now, there's only one left. Do we know that in that sense with CUC?
We do, because, like I said earlier, they have to submit monthly reports to us of fuel consumption, and we verify it.
And we go there and do the audit and
well, this is where the teamwork comes in. So with Duke's team, Duke's can verify the quantity that was delivered. And report what was good. As a matter of fact, we had a situation where that spillage that occurred. And so that Duke's team looked at that and advised us, and we in turn talked to CUC about that. So it's a collaborative effort between both sectors to ensure that consumers are not affected by any fuel misuse.
All right. Well, certainly
potential fuel misuse, I should say.
All right. And we're going to talk about it. See that? We'll do that break again. But when we come back, we have a couple of questions that were posted with us electronically. Let's ask about those. Sure. And then let's ask about the market in the international community and the prices, the impact of sanctions. They're different things. All right, we're going to talk about that when we come back. Please rejoin us.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by CG Britke. Insurance, health, pensions, life, where people come first.
Raising children is costly. That is why each year the Ministry of Education provides, through its Early Childhood Assistance Program, funding to assist Caymanian children to attend an early childhood center. For early childhood funding assistance, call the Early Childhood Care and Education Unit at 244-3155 or 936-0267, or download an application form from the Ministry's website at www.gov.ky/education and email the completed form to ecap@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, the Chief Fuels Inspector, Mr. Duke Monroe, the Executive Director for Energy, Mr. Greg Anderson, and the Fuels Analyst, Mr. Dwayne Tucker, our guest. And they're from off-rig, you hear it often, you wonder, how does one entity, how so much? Well, good leadership like this, they can take it all on. As we talk about fuels, and we want to get to that, but let's ask, on behalf of one of our listeners, a series of questions that were posted on. I think some of these were already answered, but it's worth, as Mr. Monroe, repetition so that we get increasingly much better informed and more comfortable with information. First question is, why are the prices already going up in Cayman?
Sure, thanks for that again, Sterling. So, as I mentioned, from the beginning of the year to now, prices have been increasing. So all imports that came into Cayman would have seen some increase, with the exception of diesel, I believe, in January, and DT, Dwayne, what we call him DT.
What's that DDT? That's a wrestling. I mean, you can't have that.
can weigh in on that. So one can reasonably expect, or one can verify and validate based on all the publicly available sources, as well as if they wish to obtain the information that the information that we obtain from the importers, and information we also independently verify that costs have been increasing. Now, you asked the very pertinent question as to inventory accounting methods and stuff, which really, to keep it simple, one company uses a blended cost. So immediately once they receive their product, they blend it with the cost that the stock they have existing. Those two costs comes up with a new weighted average cost. Another company uses the first in, first out method. There is a competition element, and I've been warned, and I have to restrain myself. There is a competition element to price changes also, in that if both companies receive product at or about the same time, and one is using the first in, first out method, if that company product is going to be exhausted in about three weeks, then the one company that uses the blended cost may be at a risk if they increase their price based on this increased acquisition cost of losing volumes. So there is a possibility that they will wait until the first in, first out guy exhausts his current stock, moves on to the new layer, goes up or down on the price, and the other guy follows. So this is what, at times, it doesn't always happen. There are companies that use the weighted average cost would go ahead, say this is the real cost. They need to start recovering it. They will change, and you'll probably see a difference in prices. And all persons who have been looking at prices will see that there are times when you see significantly different prices at the retail sites. So they in one company for sure, persons who have been tracking it closely will see that there wasn't an increase, in price until earlier this month, even though they've been receiving increase in acquisition cost products. So the increase we are seeing now is as a result of those types of arrangement where the first in, first out guy has now made a change, so the other company decided this is my opportunity to now start increasing my price, and that increase is based on product that was obtained in February, and coincidentally it happens to be at the same time prices are increasing because of the surge. I believe you mentioned there also that the question was asked either by yourself or by the member of the public as to whether we actually start seeing prices that is based on this surge. Now, once the war was announced, we understand that price just escalated. We have not actually gotten prices because those increases are in the orders of $50. The increases we're seeing locally, of the members of the public would pay attention, is just about 20 cents recently.
26 cents I saw in one case, yeah.
36 cents on in terms of the quantity.
Yeah.
Okay. So
26,
okay, 26. Well, yes, the average of 26 cents. Yeah. But the prices we're seeing as a result of the surge is in the order of $1. Refined prices have gone from $2, $2.90 to $3.90. Would have steeped as much as $4. So those prices are, are now shifting into. We're expecting vessels this week. We still haven't seen that by law. They have to provide out those invoices to us by law. Again, the actual invoices within 7 days. So we will get those. We try to get them much early. We will see where those costs are going, and then that will determine where possible shifts will be. So the increases we're seeing right now is based on.
Yeah, I want to ask what I think may be responsible. You can weigh in different if you so choose. What we expect. We almost speculate on what we expect the price increase to be, if any. I'll leave that to you to decide. But unfortunately, we've seen a lot in the public domain. Gas is going to be this and this is going to happen. That one leads to unsettlement. But I'll leave that to you if you wish to address that.
Sure, I'll ask DT to just speak about what we've seen in terms of the spike after the war was announced, and where we are right now in terms of its tailoring off.
Yes. So in terms of the increases we have seen on the international market, we have seen on the March 7th, I see where increases were in the order of 50 cents for the day. And subsequent to that, on the 8th, similar. But then on the 9th, we saw where it actually went down 90 cents. So that's a positive thing. So it all depends on which day they would have probably purchased products.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, this is where I guess the consumer needs to be more informed and engaged. We appreciative that time to time, Off-Reg would publish what the prices are across the different stations. And some consumers may decide to go to their normal one because it's a custom hobby. You're buying the same product, you're just buying a service. Right. But in terms of economics, there's the elasticity of demand and their prices in this case. Unless you have some other mode of transport, you're buying diesel or gasoline. You really got to either take it or leave it, pretty much, right? So with that, how do we weigh that in? And secondly, when a request is made, is it for Ofreg to approve it, or can the stations say, well, listen, the fuel supplier say, listen, this is what it's going to cost us, and this is what the price is going to be, and this is it? Or does Ofreg weigh in and say, nope? Again, we asked about price controls, but in this case, approval to be had to set the price?
In terms of approval, no, we don't approve. We don't explicitly approve those prices to say, this is where your price. We're notified of where those prices are going based on those cost elements, and we essentially it's like a no objection to if we don't have concerns. If we do, which we had in the past, we would raise it and then we'd have it resolved or clarified. It could be some costs that were not reflected, other costs that may have been introduced into the equation that is a legitimate cost. We would look at that, and again, as I said, it's no objection to that.
And for clarity, I use this as an analogy. Please guide us to make sure that we're not improper. I take CBC. So we bring in an object. Customs want an original invoice, and they look at it and they say, no, this vehicle, in our mind, you didn't pay $5,000, you paid $15,000 or whatever it is. They have that right. In the Lands and Survey, a piece of property that is purchased, it may be a legitimate arm and length, honest, nothing wrong with the deal, nobody's trying to do anything, but they set the evaluation. No, we think this property is worth more than what you paid for it, and they in both cases are assessed at what's determined. In this instance, how does Ofreg know that invoice provided? Not want to impute anything about it, not want to infer anything, but just for other purposes. The invoice that they provided on this quantity of fuel at this price and whatever this is done, is it? Now, I do recognize that you want to calculate it based on volume, on the quantum, not on the actual price. But how do we know that in there is 1 million gallons and not 10 million? Just for argument's sake.
So 2 things you asked there, Sterling. You asked about ensuring or validating the actual amount paid and the quantity that is verified. So there's an official process because of course duties again like on the customs is calculated based on that. Right. So that process involves a very very I believe I can speak on behalf of our colleagues at Custom that the process is very tight and rigorous to dip the tanks before, dip after, make adjustments for temperature compensation, etc., and establish that this is the firm quantity on which duties are to be paid, and that amount then translates into what the invoice amount is going to be. Okay. In terms of the value, the price that is paid, there is a number of discussions around that. As a matter of fact, I had a very interesting discussion with a colleague from one of our sister agencies on this in terms of valuing the product. What we do, we establish where the product was purchased, the date it was purchased, the port, and we go to our independent subscription. It's a public Platts subscription. It's paid for. And we establish based on that trading information what was the prevailing price at that date. Now there's always the interesting discussion that they could have gotten discounts, they could have gotten all of these variation. We're not saying it's not something that we can't look into and would explore. But at the current time, I believe it represents a very fair, reasonable, traceable means to say this was the prevailing price. So if your price is in line with that, it should be reasonably accepted to us. In jurisdiction, there are so many approaches to that. Sometimes government to government. I'll buy it from you under this arrangement. I'll negotiate the price. All of these things can be factored in, but at the current time, we go based on the established date of which the product was uplifted, the price, and that's what we verify against. The discussion leads, so what if they would have purchased batches in advance? Of course, when the price is increasing, they will tend to benefit, but of course, it's the converse. When the prices are decreasing, they purchase 6 months in advance. And allow me to stick in, even though the point was raised about this, in this same instance, we saw after the war was announced, prices Crude peaked up over 100 and kept climbing. Refined prices went all the way up to $4. And as DT said, from the 9th to now, we've seen those prices slid. So if they would have gone ahead based on those speculation and purchase on the 9th, out for 3 months, we were going to be stuck with $4 a gallon refined prices, which can translate to over about $6 a gallon here.
It's not an easy thing, but it's something. So I appreciate this, and as a consumer, we can get a better understanding. Let's pause, take the news. When we come back, certainly invite you to share with us so we can learn more. Please stay tuned.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The 15th Youth Parliament tackles sexual harassment and challenges to home ownership for Caymanians in the current real estate market. Young people between 14 and 24 spent much of the past year learning how government works, culminating in today's session, which is airing live on YouTube as well as on Breeze 105.3 FM. In international headlines, a new round of talks today between Russia and Ukraine, even as Moscow's forces pound away at Kiev and other cities across the country. In a tweet, UK Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says remaining COVID travel measures in the UK will end at 4 a.m. on Friday. BBC says the announcement means incoming passengers to the UK who are not fully vaccinated will no longer have to take COVID tests before and after traveling to the UK. The passenger locator form will also not be necessary. Britain's top court today refused WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange permission to appeal against a decision to extradite him to the U.S. to face spying charges. The court says it refused because the case did not raise an arguable point of law. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Captain Keith Parker Tibbetts, MBE, JP. In late 1945, Captain Keith Parker Tibbetts and his brothers formed Tibbett Brothers to build a cargo ship for trading in the Caribbean, which they named TB Radar, launched on August 20th, 1946. Keith supervised the construction, which was the first ship launched on Cayman Brac with the engine already installed. Keith also supervised the building of a second ship the following year, the MV Sonar, which launched on September 9th, 1947. After operating the ships for a few years, the brothers sold them both. Years later, he built and launched the MV Trial on 3rd of January 1967. In 1951, he joined the Trinidad Shipping Company for a year and a half before coming back to Cayman Brac in 1952 to join the ranks of Caymanians who were shipping out to global ports with national bulk carriers. Even though, unlike most of his fellow seamen, he spent merely a year on the ocean before turning his sights towards the promised land on shore. One of his personally created catboats was on display in the Kensington Museum in London for many years, a shining example of his pride of craftsmanship and excellence. This was part 4 of his special Sister Islands vignette series dedicated to Captain Keith Parker Tibbetts.
I'll be back. I've got 22 more days.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Freedom, Cayman Brac. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
For medical
Medical lab services in Cayman. Go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman. MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us again. Very public thanks to Mr. Daniel Lee, overall operator manager for Consumer Affairs and Public Education, for facilitating his colleagues and assisting us in getting this discussion. The Chief Fuels Inspector, Mr. Duke Monroe, the Executive Director of Energy, Mr. Greg Anderson, and the Fuels Analyst, Mr. Dwayne Tucker. I think the public getting a chance to listen directly from you, maybe dispelling some of their own misconceptions, getting a better sense of education and awareness. And maybe at some point, I want to ask you, unless you feel inclined, but there are things that we as consumers can and should be doing. You know, sitting in the cars all day, eating lunch, having it idle, and then complaining about the gas, being used up, or, car needing servicing. Maybe that's not what we do. Maybe we roll the windows down and take the fresh air. But again, we can do certain things. We talk about carpooling because it's environmentally safe, but maybe it's economically conscious. That aside, let's understand the cost of fuels. Let's ask one other question or two that came in as well. And the consumers were saying, as you referenced, sometimes the prices go up and we see it, increase right away, and then when they come down, we don't. You did allude to that, but again, how does that come into play out? I mean, where do we see that in this context? Banks have been sort of beaten similarly with interest rates. Interest rates are being announced and they go up, they come down, and did they come down for us? Maybe, right? So prices go up, we see it. Prices come down, do we see it? And where does offering really play into that?
All right, I see DT's signaling to me.
He's smart. Let me talk to the hands.
No problem. The phenomenon that is referred to as rocket feathers shoot up. Asymmetric pricing, the correct term. So when members of the public see these terms, at least we try to explain them. Mm-hmm. Prices, you will tend to see more price increases, and it's a fact. It's on paper. We can provide that information to show that there are more frequent increases than there are decreases. What we'd really like to stress on is in the last 2 years, we've seen decreases that were significant. The largest decrease, we've seen was 40 cents per gallon. You may see a series of 5 increases, but all 3 cents. 5 3 is 15, as against one drop that may be 20 cents. If prices, as we've explained to our colleague, if prices are continuing on the up and not on the down, then naturally one would expect prices to be way over $8-10 if there had not been decreases. So yes, the important point that we want to stress here is that the change in price you see at the pump or at the wholesalers are based on the acquisition costs that they would have on the date they would have purchased, that we would have verified. So if that price, the price in March is slightly more than the price in February, then you will probably see that few cents. When it goes down, you will see that that decrease. It's not perfect, Sterling. We are working to ensure that we see the most efficient pricing in Cayman. So hence the reason why we would have benefited from relatively lower prices shortly after the lockdown. But we are monitoring and ensuring that the price of fuel locally follows the trend. Where there are increases, those increases are generally allowed to be passed on. Where they're not, then we challenge. Where there are decreases, same applies. I also want to touch on the point because it's linked to the excellent point you're about to raise in terms of consumer awareness. This is something that we want to ensure that there's a holistic approach to all of this. when prices are increasing, commodity, and you've really couched it very well in that it's not very easy for us to make short-term changes because of the way we commute, the way we do things that are energy dependent, so we are not able to switch. But in terms of demand, it's purely inelastic. So nothing changes in terms of demand when the price go. Of course, it's a lot more pressure on us to drop everything else we're doing to provide the assurance that we are doing our best in terms of prices. But yes, it's a message that we're going to be building on with our colleagues, government, the Ministry of Sustainability. We've actually started having some discussions around that. We spoke to Radio Cayman on that previously in terms of conservation, energy awareness, to really be part of the complete solution to combat these impacts.
I think many of us are environmentally conscious, but we don't realize that we're also economically conscious. My brother said cheap. It plays into the same thing. You're starting to do it. As we talk about that, could we just maybe ask this other thing? Earlier you referenced that any importation of 35 gallons or more, you're required to provide, before the invoice, the quantity and the origin. This last question asks if there's any prohibition on a regular consumer importing their own fuel, the example of 50-gallon drum or so. So the individuals, Didi?
So in the case of somebody that would like to import anything over 35 gallons or more, they will certainly need to get an import permit from the office.
Okay.
Right? And if it's less than 35 gallons, then they can actually import it without actually reporting to the office.
All right. And again, this is where maybe some people they may find it's beneficial depending on the type of operation they have and the like. But I would be mindful that they will be concerned with the safety.
Absolutely.
Even a gallon of petrol can be an issue.
Absolutely.
Storage, transportation, and the like. All right, let's look at the global market and guide me, because just because I saw it on the news, that means that they reported it rightly or I understood it correctly. It would appear that Russian oil, Russian gas, and like when it comes to the U.S., they don't import a whole lot of it. Europe seems to have this insatiable appetite for the Russian gas. That aside, even from the 70s, that pipeline been going through despite the height of the Cold War. But from that context, how does this in the Cayman context affect us? The answer may be obvious, but they're fighting over there. We get our gas from the U.S. The U.S. doesn't get much from Russia. So really, how does that affect us? I mean, and if so, well, help us to appreciate that.
Perfectly legitimate question. The global trade for crude and refined product is heavily interlinked. If we are to probably show you a map of trading routes, you'll just see a map with lots of lines on it that plots out everything else. So it's interlinked because of the logistics. So the routes to get to various points, as we mentioned previously, that you may actually find a batch of fuel may have been traded from China, came through from somewhere in Europe, got to the Caribbean, and is actually being sold here because of how it's interlinked. Now, the demand and supply in the globe is what actually sets the global oil prices, and that then filters into refined prices. And I'm just trying not to use the term, it's an arbitrage effect. If there is an impact in one area that puts upward pressure on price in that area, because of the potential for that supply to maybe place some strain on other areas, this sort of global shock, the price in some other area may actually go up in response to Russia's situation. Not really hardwired, not really directly linked, but it tends to go up. The risk-free profit just buoys it up. Demand slumps, there is really an oversupply. Everybody wants to get their oil sold. Prices go downward globally so that they're first to be in the next vendors.
I think some people would have been more attuned with when OPEC tried to restrict their supply in order to increase the price, and the world felt it. Whether the U.S. would want to dip into strategic reserves or not, and then if they did, would that be for their own consumption versus export? But in this instance, we gather that Russia may or may not have calculated. Putin, I think, being as smart as Trump said he is, probably did calculate it, right? The price of his fuel goes up, he can pay for his war much easier because the demand is there, and even if they didn't want it, they have to do that. So that even affects his ability to be finance despite the world sanctions. That interplay that you speak of. Just rewind for a second to a couple of years ago. If I'm mistaken, again, let me know. I thought we saw instances where the price of fuel had come down so low in the short term because of decreased demand, yet at our pump it still wasn't $0, even though the price of it was almost not much on a barrel. How does that play out?
Excellent question again. We have to give.
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
I appreciate Mr. Anderson sharing the questions with me. That's
no problem. Yeah, questions we really couldn't think of to provide clarification on, but it's necessary that because these are really burning questions that are out there. It really just. If I can say it simply, it's just how the cost flows through the system during that period when prices would have fell below zero, crude prices, to be more specific, refined prices did not get anywhere close to $0 per gallon. It was still at about 50, 60 cents. So this is why we will not see, and it's just by virtue, of whatever the cost is paid by the refinery, even if it's negative, there are going to be refinery margins added on to that, logistics, getting it here, all duties and other imposts, and then the wholesalers, retailers margin. So we didn't actually see that. And much more importantly, unless we were fortunate to purchase on that day or 2 or 3 days where it went down into that slump, we would have missed that. Persons actually ask us to ensure we incentivize that type of arrangement where we try to get our importers to purchase on low period. It's worth consideration, but the practicality of it is not anywhere remotely close to that. But these are things we look at to try to see if our importers are always purchasing on the peaks. These are things that we look into in terms of reviewing.
Yes, if I might
yes, sir.
It wasn't a case of where the price of refined fuel went below $0.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was a lack of refining capacity.
Yeah.
Right, and other logistical problems that the oil couldn't be delivered to. So for Red to be able to put his finger on the pulse and say purchase at this point in time is an impossibility, quite frankly.
Right. But this is where I think that many times, and this is probably unfortunately some of the pundits in the media. Anyway, I'll leave that for now, especially coming to the U.S. But again, the informed consumer and how do we, respond? How are we not just proactive, but how are we conscious in our consumption? Some of us want, windows open, the AC down to, below 10 degrees and question why the house isn't getting cool or the bill is so high because the AC doesn't turn off. Then there are those of us who will never turn it on and can see a benefit in some homes. So it depends, right? For this though, nobody has a crystal ball, and if it would, I would consider strongly don't look into it. But that's a different question. We don't know where this will go. For the Cayman marketplace and the consumer, our quantity relative to the global market, our supply is relatively controlled in terms of the shipment coming in. As with everything, what would be your advice to the consuming public? I think back, as I said, to a few decades ago in parts of Florida, prices went up. The consumers came out en masse and said, we're not driving. But that was a different thing relative to the allegations of the pricing mechanism in the fuel supply market there. We saw something similar after Hurricane Andrew with the cost of insurance and the like, and the intervention by its legislature there. But in the Cayman place, Mr. Anderson?
If I can just add a point there, Dwayne, there is an initiative that the general public can take, because I've seen recently too, there's a trend now towards more EVs and electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. And the Off-Reg took an initiative as far back as 2018 to introduce a special charge and rate for electric vehicles. And the government has also reduced the import duty on electric vehicles. So, it's consumer choice again. You have the situation where, do I buy a diesel, gasoline, or hybrid or EV vehicle? And I think one of the showstoppers for electric vehicles used to be before that the auto dealers say they couldn't get a hold of the vehicles. We're not seeing that change, and several are now. We have Hyundai, we have Audi, we have Cayman Economic Cars are now bringing in electric vehicles, and so the option is there for people to purchase these vehicles, and the price point on those are also coming down to be comparable with other fossil fuel vehicles.
Right.
And then when one, like you said, educated consumer looks at the total cost of ownership, fossil fuel vehicle versus electric vehicles, the numbers are now looking very attractive.
Right.
So that's an option for consumers to investigate too.
Yeah, this is why I welcome your participation today. I think while as a consumer, but even as a nation, we start to figure out what is the ethos, the economic ethos, the political ethos, the social consciousness from that perspective. As we have that discussion, there will be those who would say, well, if I invest this amount in this thing, the payback over this time is worth it. For that person that can afford $20,000 over 20-year lifespan, $1,000 a month, they may be write it off. For that person, they can't find $2, so they won't even be able to even consider $20,000. It comes back to that. But then we need to be able to appreciate the analysis so that it makes sense then from a national perspective where we are. You recall, Mr. Anderson, it wasn't long ago when consideration of buying an electric vehicle, there are many who would laugh at you for doing that.
Precisely, yeah.
But now it's like they laugh at you, why won't you? So we've shifted in, less than 12 years. Significant. So it comes back to consumer demand. If we drive the market and the response from the manufacturers is that we want more of this for whatever the reason is, the price is there. But again, it's the consumer shift.
Again, and not only consumer shift, but supplier shift, because Shell has now bought out, I can't recall the name of the company, but it's installing the most electric vehicle charging station across the U.S.
Yeah.
So the suppliers are seeing the winds of change and saying, I have to shift part of my...
What drives that, do you think? And if this is political, then so be it. But is it the policymaker, the politicians, through legislation incentivizing the economy? Is it the consumers? Or is it the innovative supplier, the company who says, you know what, this is where the market is going. I'm going to get into this and be, one of the leaders, as it were.
Well, I think it's a combination of both, because when you look at the U.S., let's look at a northern neighbor, for instance. GM has said it's phasing out all fossil fuel vehicles by 2025. Ford is following a similar thing. We have the European car makers, they've gone a lot into hybrid. And I think it's Finland, if I'm not mistaken, has banned fossil fuel vehicles altogether and have a program where what exists, they are allowing people to trade them out and actually giving them a credit to be able to finance that over a period of time. So no more fossil fuel vehicles. And the thing that goes along with that is electrification of the grid. And a lot of those countries, even though they have a smaller solar radiance, and that's a lot of those are going to renewables. And renewables in some of those situations are because they have hydro or they can do waste energy and things like that. So I think it's a multiplicity of factors that are driving these. And yes, the fossil fuel producers are realizing that their business model have to change. And in tandem with that, so are the consumer producers, the vehicle producers, and other factors are coming into play.
We see the solar array in Malmö, Sweden. We see the use in Spain, I think in Seville, the large plant. But we go back to Germany from the early 70s. Now, I didn't really pay a lot of attention in geography class. I think everybody knew that. Economics was next door, and that was much more appealing.
Right.
But Germany don't get as much sunshine as Cayman.
Right.
Yet they've been leaders in looking at alternative energy. So here we could consider that. Again, the political, the economic, but also the social appeal. All right, we got one quick break to take, and then we invite you to stay on as much as you wish, but to share with the listeners. And I really, really publicly want to say a special thanks for being so immediately responsive to coming to the public. For those who are listening, if you have a question specifically relative to fuel prices, we'll take your calls. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Subway is serving up a special new sauce, bursting with flavor in every bite. The new Savory Collection is a tropical sweet and spicy sauce made with a combination of spices, habanero peppers, thyme, onion, black pepper, ginger, citrus juices, and molasses.
So good.
Wow.
Sensational.
Delicious.
Subway's Savory Collection pairs perfectly with our oven roasted chicken or steak sub. Savor the flavor. For a limited time, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
Thinking of getting a hybrid but don't know much about them? Vamp Motors has 3 great reasons why you should own the Toyota CHR. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries while being driven. So there's no need to plug in your hybrid, making it both economical and fun to drive. And you don't have to replace your battery every 2 years. The CHR Hybrid is reliable, providing up to 1 million kilometers on the same battery and engine. Oh, and now you can save $2,000 off the Toyota CHR, starting at only $33,500.
That's way more than 3 reasons.
True, but the best one is that it's on sale now. Test drive the Toyota CHR today at Vamp Motors, Walkers Road, while stocks last.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointments.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Come join the viewing party for the 70th edition of the International Miss World Pageant live from Puerto Rico. Wednesday, March 16th at 6 p.m. Carew, Camana Bay. Hosted by the Miss World Cayman Islands Committee. Meet our past Miss World queens and learn more about the Miss World Cayman Pageant and Girl Power Cayman. All are invited. Join us at the Miss World Viewing Party, Carew, Wednesday, March 16th at 6 p.m. See you there.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us, and thanks too to the off rig for not just being so timely and responsive, but if I may, respectfully, so candid and forthcoming, and the willingness to answer, to share, so that as a people we are not just informed and educated, but we're also consciously aware of how we can contribute. The Chief Fuels Inspector, Mr. Duke Monroe, the Executive Director for Energy, Mr. Greg Anderson, and then the fuel analyst here. DT, you probably saw him on WWE sometime back. That's the guy, man. That's the guy. But it is, I think, true laughter and a healthy sense of respect that we get to learn. Think back to our days of education, the classroom where the teacher made it fun to learn. You wanted to come to school, and you came away and you did your homework. And this is where, not just like the doctor who says a little honey makes the medicine go down. It's about it. So as we sort of wrap up our discussion in absence of any comments from our public, what are some of the things that you want to take away for the general public? We're faced with something, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure what is going to happen over there. Not sure how the Western group will respond. I don't know. I have my views. I've had them for a few decades now, but that's just my view. I believe in a citizen. You guys can publicly chastise me. As I said, with the greatest of respect to His Excellency. I would rather have seen us adopt something that was akin to a diplomacy corps than a regiment, however you call it. Because now isn't diplomacy in international relations much more, in my mind, beneficial? for what it's worth. I think Mr. Putin's efforts, again, misguided if they are, probably saying to the people, hey, I don't want this, this is an important place for me, but if you can't hear your feel, like I go and mash it down the place. Not the smartest thing to do, but how many have done that before? We've seen it in relation to Stingray City, where men in frustration have said, listen, if we can't be a part of this, we can mash it up. We've seen it in relation to riots across the place. If we can't be a part of this, we can mash it up. Not the smartest thing to do, but people do it because sometimes we're not the smartest. So if we have diplomacy, if we can come together and we can figure out, just take the consumer now, don't leave your car running. Maybe don't drive it constantly. If you can carpool or share a friend, I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, well, what do we want to take away?
Well, thank you. Thanks again, Sterling, for allowing us to be here to provide this initial round of clarification, public education in terms of fuel prices. We certainly want to assure the public and all stakeholders that we are working in the best interest of consumers in this somewhat unique circumstance that we are faced with, prices rising at what can be considered unprecedented levels. We will do our part to ensure that the most efficient pricing are reflected out there at the pumps. And we're also imploring consumers, as you said, to take that little step that can be taken to make a difference in terms of your consumption, because that makes a difference too in terms of what you pay if you can defer that gas, that top-up bill to another day. And we want to be very pragmatic about the whole matter. That's not going to be very easy given how we currently conduct our lives, but it's really for us to at least start the thought process as to how we're going to deal with this. And as we look at different forms of ways of combating these challenges, energy efficiency, energy conservation, I think it's going to bode well in the long term for us. We are also going to be making recommendations, as we spoke about, in terms of what extra the oil companies can do, what extra the government can do in terms of government imposts, etc., to alleviate the impact. But we want to ensure we maintain a very balanced environment for ourselves. You touched on it, that we want to ensure that the cost is efficient, but at the same time we have it readily available so that you can go to a gas station and you can get fuel, rather than maybe seeing fuel dip to unsustainable levels, but you can't have it readily accessible when needed. So at OFREG, we are sincerely committed to that. There's much that's said I can't say on air in terms of where our allegiance lies. We certainly we have a mandate to protect consumers because they're the ones that are likely going to be the most vulnerable in the equation. The companies can't defend themselves, and they're prepared to do it once we become irrational. So we are going to continue to be that advocate, that voice for consumers in terms of ensuring they get the best out of the situation. But you wrapped it up very nicely by saying diplomacy, us banding together. We are going to have our differences, and we are going to wrestle via various outlet, media and stuff that you can vent. But once we can have that show of support, commitment, diplomacy from all angles, all stakeholders, I think we can manage this and come through this. Well, thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to underscore what my colleague Duke said here. We are mandated to protect consumers, and we use all the tools at our disposal to do that. And we talked about how consumers can help themselves to. I just mentioned previously about using electric vehicles, because that's a trend that's going to come, and we, from the OFREG perspective, we're looking at maintaining that consumer choice, because some people, you're never ever going to take away a fossil fuel vehicle from them, but things that they can do, and not just from a vehicle standpoint, but those costs also translate directly into your home. And my colleague Duke here mentioned about energy conservation. Those are things that people can do at their home. You have to realize that coming the summer, if the prices of gas or any fossil fuel are still trending upward, if you don't reduce your consumption, then you can't really complain about having a higher electricity bill, because the fuel costs are direct pass through the consumer. If you consume more electricity than you could justify or want to have the luxury of using, then you have to pay the price. It doesn't sound a little bit callous, but no. If you do consume, then you have to pay for it. And I think one of the things that OFRIC is doing, I'm going to underscore that part again. Protection of consumers in every sector that we regulate. Ensure that no deleterious effects are passed through to them. And I use the term stand guard at the gate to try and filter through the impact on consumers as far as possible. And so we have to do that in collaboration with other agencies and most importantly the government too, because I think at the end of the day, the government is the sole shareholder of OFRIC. The government sets policy. OFRIC executes the government policy, so the government itself can influence, and I think are taking steps to influence impact on consumers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly appreciate it, and this endeavor to speak directly to the public, we appreciate utilizing the platform. And as consumers, we can and should be more actively engaged and informed, and see things as best as we can through a considered perspective. So thanks very much, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Monroe, and Mr. Tucker for coming on board. Looking forward to future discussions with you.
Thank you very much.
Today's Monday, so let it be a prosperous, productive, and pleasant one as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And same to you, sir.
To our listeners, when we return, we're going to have open line for the remainder of the show. There's a lot to discuss. We can continue talking about this. There's a judgment that has been handed down by the Privy Council. If you want to share on that, if you want to talk about the recipes for the next best fish tea, hey, just bring it and I'll sample it. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
New to Cayman, the Cayman Documentary Festival. Real world problems, real world solutions. 5 documentaries, 5 discussion panels. March 16th to the 20th at the Camana Bay Cinema. Documentaries include domestic abuse, environmental protection, mental health awareness, technology and finance, and music and heritage. Tickets available at fanango.com for $25. Funds benefiting Plastic Free Cayman, Crisis Center Cayman, Alex Panton Foundation, NCVO, and Cayman Arts Festival. The Cayman Documentary Festival. Real world problems, real world solutions. March 16th to the 20th at the Camana Bay Cinema.
JN Money. Money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we a pick? Yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Calling all amateur bakers in the Cayman Islands. Celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, taking part in the Cayman Islands Platinum Cake Competition. His Excellency the Governor Martin Roper invites you to submit your homemade dessert recipe to the Governor's office by April 3rd. Win a chance to have your dessert recreated for the Queen's birthday party in June. Do you have what it bakes? Well, submit today at gov.ky/Jubilee.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we go into some open line, invite you to call and share your thoughts on any topic. Can I once again say a very special thanks to the team at Offrig, Mr. Monroe, Mr. Anderson, and Mr. Tuck in particular for joining us, and for Mr. Lee for facilitating the request and getting the team on board as we continue this discussion. But it is open line, so let's go straight to our phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very blessed, very healthy, very thankful. How are you?
Thankful and blessed too.
Amen.
Beautiful day today, the Cayman Islands.
It is indeed. Thank God.
Yes. Sterling, I just called out tail end of your conversation there with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about electric cars, and it could be the in thing as the years keep coming, the months keep coming, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And they also talking about the gas. So, Sterling, why are we building more gas stations? People is promoting electric cars in the Cayman Islands. I don't want you to answer that now. I just want to say a few things to you, and then you can hop on if you like to, because I'm going to step out of my car for a minute or two. And it just occurred to me just to know that they're talking about electric cars, and there's a few on the road, and like you say, more is coming.
Mm-hmm.
But where do we go from there with the gasoline for our cars, and why more gas stations? So is electric car going to be cheaper than a gasoline car? You know? So probably if they're listening, they could probably call back, or you have the answer, then I would ask you to answer that when I hang up.
Well, I can engage you only to the limited extent that I know, and certainly to my perspective. But if you know, and if you recall what Mr. Anderson even shared, the government has over the years sort of tried to incentivize that market by either reducing the duty significantly, and even in some cases actually taking off the duty altogether, so that purchase of that vehicle is now just the cost of the vehicle to get it here, less the duty is sort of out of it. But then, yes, ma'am.
Taking the duties off an electric car, and the average person who is bringing in regular cars, what are they paying, like 27%?
I think it's
on their vehicles, Sterling.
Right.
Come on, I don't see no bargain there.
Yeah. Well,
everybody wants an electric car.
Right. Well, it's the duty is calculated based on the price. I don't have the tariff schedule in front of me, but it's $0 to X dollars is one amount. Then as the prices increase, there are certain bands. Now it's a progressive tax. Some would say, well, it should be proportional, right? So that you have a flat tax, 10% of 10,000 versus 10% of 100,000. It's still the same 10%, but the dollar value is more. Others have argued, well, if you can afford to buy an electric vehicle for 100,000, or one for 50,000, or one for 25,000, should it be duty free? Maybe like some things, give for example, the concessions the government has put in place for purchase of homes and properties. It is up to a certain sum, right? It's duty free between one amount and the other. It's a reduced stamp duty, and then above that, I think it's 600,000. It's the normal 7.5%. But why can it be a tiered approach? Your first 400,000 is duty-free. The next 300,000 is X%. Above that is 4%. I mean, could we look at it in that perspective? It may be an economic model to consider.
Sterling, it's going to be pat and butter for fish, my dear, when it comes to these things here for us.
Yeah.
And Sterling, we're going to come off of that, but I'm quite sure someone else will call in regards to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Sterling, I just want to say that I drove through East End yesterday, a friend of mine, and
good for you.
to see the amount of property up there that is undeveloped still in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is trying to get into Georgetown. When are we going to try to do some of this building? And when I say building, like, say for example, some of the companies here that already got 2 and 3 companies in Georgetown. What do they look at the population that's coming into town to work and put something up in them areas that they wouldn't have to be driving to town on sometime from Monday to Saturday or from Monday to Friday, and they want to go to the store, they got to come back down Saturday to go to to various stores they want to and all that kind of stuff. And when I go to there and see that that nothing has, I know this guy that running the NP now, NP you call him now, NP.
Well, yeah. What was MLA and that was MP?
Yeah. I mean, Sterling, I haven't seen nothing highlighted. And all I can hear, we've only been in 1 year and they've only been this and that. Sterling, that is bull. We don't need to hear that. We need action and we need to see something. And in all of the driving, I saw 2 cars that is ready to be towed away. I didn't notice no red sticker from the government on them with environmental health. And to see that they are sitting so close to the road, on the main road, and you want to tell me the MP or whoever it is for that district, I don't know how long they've been sitting there, because I haven't been in East End in a long time. How long they've been sitting there now, I don't know. But to know that we're trying to clean up Georgetown and West Bend and everywhere else, and nothing, East End is not a very active district as well as North Side. No disrespect to them. Bordentown is very active. And when I say active, you got to pass through Bordentown to get where you want to go. You can stop in there and get something to eat and, that kind of way. And when they're coming up from town, you can stop in and get gas and food and whatever the case may be. It's, it's pretty active.
Yeah. I can see what you're sharing relative to the development, but let's just go back to the cars and that are being, I'll use the word, just discarded along the side of the roads, right? Not to defend the politicians, but why should it necessarily have to be them? I mean, we as citizens, or we as police officers, we as the respective government agencies.
Sterling,
yes, ma'am.
You know what the mentality is about those cars being parked here and there and scrap? They paid their, what do you call it, duties on it to be taken to the dump for the battery, the tires, the this and the that. So they got this mentality that, it's my car, I paid government for this. So it's their duty to pick it up off the road and take it to dump.
Is that what it is?
That's
okay.
99.9% time, sir. That's what it's all about.
Right. Well,
and we got people going scrapping these cars, and not one soul can say that they saw Jan scrapping some other car last night.
Yeah.
A blind eye and 1 ton of cameras on the island.
Right. But I mean, the vehicle appears in the spot almost like you said overnight. I'm wondering if this is a case where if it's not in the law, it should be. And if it is, then it should be enforced, right? Where the vehicle has an identification number on it. And we understand that there are some issues with it, but that then should be traced back to the owner. Even if that owner say, well, I sold that vehicle, but the transfer isn't there, maybe there needs to be a sense of enforcement. Now,
Sterling, the individual could be dead or they move away from the island.
Fair enough. But I think even before we have legislation or enforcement of legislation, I think we need to have a cultural and social ethos that says we don't do that. Now whether you are correct in that people assume that they put it along the roadside and it's taken away at no cost to them because maybe they mistakenly believe that is covered in their fees when they bring it in, like what you say with the tires and the battery. Or maybe it's just a sense of disrespect a sense of as they...
A lot of disrespectfulness is what's going on.
Right. The tourism minister used the word nastiness. Whatever the reason is, right? But I mean, we need to get away from that.
Talking about nastiness.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about nastiness. Not trying to be rude here or anything.
No. You
Trying
just
to stop you from. I don't want you to tell me you got to go to no break.
No, you talk, Mom. You talk, Mom. You talk.
Sterling, I haven't seen the waterfront there at the little market that they had there for the cruise ship passengers.
Mm-hmm.
I crossed by there on Saturday, and it's nothing is being done yet. And nothing what I got to do overnight for the 21st of this month, saying they got cruise ships coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And I also mentioned last week in regards to these pedestrian crossings with these law signs that got sitting out in the middle of the road. I thought by now they would have had two on Walker's Road, you know, but nothing has hit Walker's Road as yet when we know that the majority of schools are on Walker's Road and there's a lot of reckless driving going on up here on Walker's Road and nobody wants to stop for the light when it's flashing. Or if it's even flashing, the kids are crossing, the car is still coming slowly before the child could even finish cross the pedestrian.
Right. I think your point, hopefully will quickly bring some action in that, as I understand what you shared the last time. Putting them in place is one thing, but they also need to ensure they put them in the schools, right?
Yeah.
Again, you know, where are your priorities? I mean, take for instance, we reduced part of Westbury Road to 25 miles an hour, but we increased Town Hall Road, the one going from the four-way to the primary school and the library, to 30 miles an hour, increased it from 25 to 30. Is that
crazy.
what we want? You know,
That's crazy.
Look at the legislation we pass. You know, a crime committed in a tourist area attracts a more severe penalty than the same crime committed in Windsor Park, Mount Pleasant, or East End. A crime against a person should be a crime against a person, and it shouldn't matter where it's committed or against whom it's committed.
Exactly. Sterling, over there by the on the corner of the street there across from the MLA building.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling, there's two little shops there they had there from years ago selling jewelry in, and they are literally dropping to pieces. And those MPs go into that house every time to do their meetings and their whatever, and they can't see those two little buildings on a corner there that was there for a little jewelry store need to be removed. They are dropping to pieces. Sterling, you know what gets me with my island? We got people in civil service, we got people in the government departments, in some of the different departments, and they're out here driving us in with a blind eye to things that is so right to this country. From what I can gather, and no, it seems like they're not moving fast enough to keep the place up to par. Up to par in Cayman in the last 5 years is going downhill when it comes to cleanliness.
So how do we correct that?
Sterling? I can't tell you on air. I'm going to call you and first and tell you.
Well, you do that.
It's not no bad word, nothing bad.
No, I understand.
What I'm going to say, I probably have more enemies than what I have right now, which I don't know if I have any enemies, and if I do have any, I put them in God's hands. But I'm going to call you or send you a text and tell you
Please do.
how we could solve that problem.
Please
All
do.
right, sweetie?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and you have a great one.
God bless. Thank you too, ma'am.
Bye. Bye-bye.
And as we listen to the caller, I think we should quickly recognize the love and the passion, the respect, the reverence that she has for the country, and the public urgent call to look at our country and its safety and security, stability, but also the way we live and work here, discarding of our litter along the roadways, abandoning our vehicles from to be scrapped, whether on the side of the road. There are those who would say that if they call to get a derelict vehicle removed from a private property, it's going to cost, X dollars, whatever the sum is. But if somehow that vehicle is now be able to move from that private property to the public road, then it's going to be taken away for free. If that's the issue, then is there a way that we can somehow figure out how to work that? There are those of us who can't afford it. There are those of us who really don't care to spend that money because we don't think we should. We, just rather spend it on something else. Maybe we just can't afford it, whatever the reason. But it is a societal issue, and it impacts all of us. Our health and welfare, the look and perspective that some may have when it comes to the country. If, and I say this, if it offends you, it's not intended, but I won't withdraw it. If our intent deliberately is to mash up the place, as some have shared recently, to make it look unsightly, unsanitary, so we don't care. We're just going to throw our garbage out the place. We're going to do everything to make it look bad. Maybe in anger and frustration, maybe in protest, whatever the reason is that the best way to address our concerns or to make our voices and our presence felt? Well, you be the judge. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling. Good afternoon.
Yes, how are you doing?
Very well, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
Good to hear.
Yeah. Listening to your last caller,
Mm-hmm.
I am baffled at Caymanians in recent times as what we used to be in years gone by.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Whatever you have in your mind, be bold enough to say it. You think about, well, you don't want to call this one. I mean, I'm not talking about making allegation. I'm talking about calling it as it is.
Calling the facts. Mm-hmm.
When you have construction
Mm-hmm.
companies starting 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they go on till 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
Who you going to go to? Who's responsible for this?
Mm-hmm.
How can these people come into your country and take such liberty with no regards of communities, locals and foreigners that live in the community, and just do as they see fit?
But how do we address that? I mean, take for instance, let's say, and I hear your point, right? And I think it's something that we have, as you say, just turned a blind eye. So take that plus the playing of music, for instance. Use that word generously. Let's say a company has a contract to build a large development, and there's a tight timeline. So they believe that by utilizing, let's say they have the resources, the project management skills, the labor, the material, all the resources, right? And they say, we can knock this out in a year as opposed to maybe 15 or 18 months as would normally, but we got to work 24/7 every day, right? Should there be a restriction on that company's operating hours? Now, we do know in some jurisdictions or in certain parts or certain places, it's very specific. The ordinances there say that they can't work before a certain hour. They have to be finished by a certain hour, and they can't work on certain days, or they can't work beyond a certain hour on a certain day, right? Should we go to that space in Cayman?
Definitely. That's people in countries that have their act together.
Okay.
Now, if I'm taking a contract to build a house or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and say that I'm going to have it finished within this specified time. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A specified time. Yes, sir.
It is my responsibility to know that I can do it
Mm-hmm.
without
Constantly working every day.
on the rights of other people, man.
The becoming a public nuisance or a private nuisance, right? Okay.
No, this thing about, look, man, it is out of control, and it's all about almighty dollar. And
Greed.
you say, how do you address it?
Right.
Why do we elect people? Why do we have people in government? What they're there for? Because of their good looks or who they are? No.
Right.
I'm soon enough going to call them out by their knee. You know me.
Yes, sir. But let me invite you to consider something, right? Right after Ivan, when we started to rebuild, we made the exception. We were willing to be accepting of it that people need to get back their businesses, their homes, and so construction was on almost 24/7. If that's not a mistaken recollection, let me know. And now that seems to have continued. Take the practice of working. Long ago, you worked a public holiday, you got double time. Saturdays, you got time and a half. Even prior to that, you came into town on certain hours or certain days, there were no activity. Now, we've moved away from that. Some would say that's a good thing. Some would say, well, that was the beginning of the end. But again, what is it that, as you shared, what is it that the society wants? What is the society willing to accept? And what is the society willing to do to ensure that certain norms are adhered to, certain practices and the like are upheld?
What the society want and need is leadership. That's what we need. That's what we want. Leadership.
Okay.
People that will be addressing this thing in the appropriate manner. The quality of life in this island, I'm sorry, it is so diminished, deteriorated. It is really hurtful to see what's going on here in this little island. Who do we go to? I don't have anybody to go to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If I had somebody to go to, I would have been there. But how I see it, nobody cares, my friend. That's my take. All right?
You're probably right about that. That's most unfortunate. Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And the caller makes, as normal, some very, very valid points. Respectfully, let's pause, go to the news. When we come back, you give us a shout and share your thoughts. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Cayman Islands Fire Service acquires 2 additional Oshkosh Stryker Aviation fire trucks as part of an ongoing fleet modernization plan. Joining the 3 existing trucks currently in operation, one of the new Oshkosh Stryker Aviation fire trucks has been fitted with high-reach extendable turret technology, which significantly improves fire and rescue capabilities as well as firefighter safety. The 65-foot extendable boom allows the CIFS aerodrome team the versatility to attack a fire from every angle and penetrate an aircraft's fuselage with intense precision. In international news, China will face consequences if it helps Russia evade sanctions in its invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. says. Unnamed U.S. officials reportedly told multiple news outlets that Russia had asked China to provide military assistance after it began the invasion. The Chinese Foreign Ministry accused the U.S. of spreading disinformation. Russia denied asking Beijing for military help. The exchanges came before top U.S. and Chinese officials met in Rome. The Supreme Court has refused to allow Julian Assange's latest appeal against extradition to the United States. A court spokesman said Mr. Assange's application did not raise an arguable point of law. The decision is a major blow to his hopes to avoid extradition. The WikiLeaks founder is wanted in the U.S. over the publication of thousands of classified files in 2010 and 2011. The case will now go back down to the original decision-making judge who assessed the United States request. A masked gunman has struck 5 times in 9 days, shooting homeless people as they slept on the streets of New York and Washington, D.C. Police say the modus operandi is the same in each case, and the mayors of the 2 cities fear a cold-blooded killer is on the loose. 2 of the people died. One's tent was set on fire after he was stabbed and shot. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
They really made a mark. Vroom, vroom. No, I can't get this out, you know. You mean them tire marks? Yeah, boy. That John Reno revving up his bike up in here, you know.
And we gotta get it out too, you know, because more honorees coming on next week.
I can't wait to hear more inspiring stories.
You'll join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. on Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM. For Youth Flex, the program for all people, by young people. Youth Flex, more than talk.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And Thank you very much for sharing with us. 949-8837, toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. With a question, there is a lot going on in the world. Not all good, but it does not all be bad. The last two callers in particular, their perspective is that together we can make a positive, meaningful, profound impact on our society to, improve the standard of living in this country right now. But it will also bode well for future generations. In blessed memory, Mr. Rupert would always call and talk about how, it was a clean place. And he would share when he would see, bits of litter in the Bacchus area in particular. Well, there was a pride. There are those of us who would remember that we would come into town, I wouldn't say early, but, by 7 a.m., the streets were being cleaned, the sidewalks were being swept and washed and hosed down and the like. Well, you might say, well, we can't do that now. Well, maybe we don't do that 7, maybe we got to do that 5 or 4. But the question is not only are we doing it, and if so, why not? But is there a collective way to make sure that we're all doing this together? You go to certain parts of the world, not just the heavily developed industrialized nations, where you still see a great sense of cleanliness, and yet we seem to take it for granted to believe that it can or should not be. Well, it's on us, and if it's maliciousness, if it is, as the Honorable Tourism Minister called it, nastiness, we need to stop it and we need to address it because it affects us all. God forbid, natural disaster, hurricane included, and there's a lot of debris and household garbage along the roads or near or on developed properties. That could become, without question, a significant health hazard. So why not be very proactive, sensible and responsible, and not dump, whether it's our vehicles or our household garbage or construction debris or even our yard waste, unless we dispose of it properly. Well, I don't believe that it is best to use the stick. I think sometimes the cart works well, but we need to be appreciative that there should be a cost and a consequence to our actions. 8949-8837, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261 if you want to share a thought on any of the particular topics. Now, when we think of governments and we say, well, government can influence certain things, you may think when it comes to fiscal policy, whether they try to manipulate the money supply or interest rates or the like. We hear economists and the like talk about quantitative easing, and we try to figure out what that means. Well, it all comes down to there's a time lag, but there's also a cost. Now, if we look at concessions and duty rebates and the like, if the government reduces duty on something, we may see, if there's a direct pass-through, a corresponding decrease in the cost of that product or service. But the question is, that foregone duty revenue that government now gives up, is that going to be made up by reallocating resources from another section, or are we going to go without it? Or are we going to ask government, well, you just gave up $1 million on this thing, but we still want this other thing that's going to cost $1 million. Where are they going to get it from? And if they borrow for it, how are we going to justify that? Very, very, very important that we understand the cause and effect. And then look at the allegations relative to housing and the like. Some of you have been very, very mindful in sharing a perspective that we should be mindful that the cost of land and housing is increasing in many places. But if we focus on the Cayman Islands in particular, it may be at a space where it's becoming almost beyond the reach of many of us, not just the young Caymanian who wants to aspire to home ownership. Now, you may have the perspective that, well, that shouldn't be an aspiration. We shouldn't be considered owning, we should be renting. That aside, whether that's a personal perspective, whether that's a societal consideration. But the question is, when we look at housing and concessions, should we be mindful that we don't create, as other jurisdictions have labeled it, slums, projects, low cost or affordable housing communities? Why not be able to have, as we had in our societies before, instead of this deliberate attempt at segregating our society through gated communities and the like? And over there is the presumably affluent. Now, money can't buy class. We see that with many of the people that are here. The word that you might be familiar with, but perhaps we should learn quickly. like Mr. Henry Bush would say, might know how to spell it. We just say it, right? They're fudders. They really know how much. But they can afford to spend $1 million or $10 million. Doesn't mean that they're worth anything, right? But do we know, instead of having that segregated community, do we say to developers, in exchange for an increased density, you provide housing for a certain price range, and you, like me, like everybody else, we can go into the space and buy a lot that is one size, one price, another lot that is another size, another price, based on our affordability. Well, maybe we could consider that. If we're going to grant, structures to be built at 10 stories, 20 stories, or 50 stories, or 100 stories, could we not also allow housing structures to be 3, 4, 5 stories that are residential, whether it's a standalone structure, whether it's part of a multi-unit housing? Maybe it's a family who says, we have a property, we like to figure out how we can build a higher density to accommodate the extended family. Now, there are a lot of considerations to be had there. But the developer who comes in and says, not only all lot sizes now are reduced from 15 to 5,000 square feet, maybe the houses in this area are, 15,000 square feet as opposed to 1,000 square feet. The aesthetic and the community, shouldn't be that it all has to be the same size, one color, almost like a cookie cutter place of all the same thing. So maybe the world was before. Maybe it's the way it should be once again. We live together and we learn to interact in a certain ways. If you go to certain jurisdictions, you see larger estates now over time being divided up and sold off, perhaps because of the economics, perhaps because of the unfortunate mismanagement of the family's wealth, or maybe just because of the sheer nature that the land isn't available in that area, and for the family to continue as the family has grown over the generations. What was the carriage house now becomes, the retirement home for the aging parents, or becomes the starter home for the new family. Well, you decide. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 1-800-534-8255, 1-800-534-8255. Or if you prefer, 949-8037. Then WhatsApp is 925-3261. Final break of the show. When we come back, more Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
The Ministry of Education invites all eligible Caymanians to apply for an Education Council Local Scholarship for the 2022-2023 academic year. To apply for a local scholarship or learn more about the various scholarship offerings, please visit the Scholarship Secretariat Unit's website at www.moescholarships.gov.ky. Applications close on Saturday, April 30th, 2022.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us. It's 949-8037, 949-8037. Toll free with compliments of flow if you so opt to call us there. 1-800-534-8255. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Green.
And to you, sir. A blessed good afternoon.
No, yes, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
What we're talking there, as we heard from those good Caymanians talking before line, is simply a matter mainly to of enforcement of our laws. And that is our problem. The word, as I always say, Mr. Winston Churchill's famous word, courage. Courage to do the right thing, to do what's right. It might be unpopular, might hurt some people, definitely, but you got to do it. Courage to say whether you left this vehicle on the road, it's easy to trace it. It can be done in a few minutes. I've seen it done in a few minutes. Exactly what address, even the phone number the person has. I'm telling you what I see. No. Problem is, get that person, says your responsibility. Come and solve it, or we're going to charge you $100 every day until it's moved. I think you got to pay it, and that's it.
Yeah,
no more questions. And the garbage, the same thing. We can stop it. We see the people throwing it out. We, the ordinary people, seeing it thrown out, car windows, piling up on roadside. No. Well, you do it. We see your vehicle, it's a $500 fine, and you've got to pay it. Or we're going to come and take your vehicle off the road until you pay the fine. Things like that, you know. Then you'll pay it. Nothing hurts like in the pocket. President Reagan said it, them in the pocket. It can be done, you know. It can be done. Just that word courage. I don't know where the problem lies, because if you think about it, there's a law that says you can't have any loud music in the clubs and in the bars and hotels and restaurants on a Sunday. But we hear the vehicles passing by with their ghetto blasters 2-3 o'clock Sunday afternoon when there's a funeral service in this church, pounding. You can't hear anything, shaking the rafters in your house. Your building floors a second earthquake, and nothing can be done about it, it seems. It seems nothing can be done because the police force can't give me an answer, really. I'm just telling you what I've been. So, I mean, who is that? I think the lady was saying, who is responsible for this? You know, there has to be somewhere where the buck stops and say, well, this is it. If you can't do it in the hotels, if you can't make the loud music, and then you can't do it on the road outside a person's house, 3 o'clock in the mornings, and outside a church with the funeral. I love music too, but it's really outrageous what is happening. It really is, and you hear it constantly. Another thing, you see people driving with their hands outside the vehicle. Their hands are outside, hanging outside, and they're talking to somebody in the vehicle. And as you know, we Caribbean people, I remember tourists always telling me this, if we tied our hands, we would be speechless. All the tourists would tell me that. They notice that. We speak with our hands a lot. Anyhow, their hands are outside the vehicle. That's illegal. It's wrong. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't have your arm outside the windows And a lot of vehicles are driving with illegible license plates. I see it all the while. Totally illegible license plates, some with no rear light, things like that. I see. And it's just a general descendance in the sort of lawlessness. Simple lawlessness. As we know, people can have a tail light go out. That's expected. It is happening. Even a headlight can go out. I'm not talking about that. Speaking about a constant thing of vehicles that look very, very illegal, being driven, and then this constant thing of the garbage. We never had that in Cayman, so it's an influx. You understand me? People who say if anything goes. And that happened with the music and the pounding and the stuff. Anything goes mentality. We have to be careful with that. Very careful. And I don't see why the fuel that's already in the tanks being pumped at a certain price, and then the next minute you hear that the price has gone up so much. What do they pay to the government for duties? I don't think it's ad valorem duty. I think it's a rated thing. It's per gallon. But then again, maybe we should be thinking about what they call in the custom world rated duties on the, your gallonage, and not ad valorem. But maybe we should think about that, and maybe we should be thinking about, we know the powerful, the might and the billions and billions of dollars that the powerful oil companies have. Mr. Raymond, my great friend, was trying to explain, and I hope people were listening to what he was saying and let it sink in. The tremendous power that they have, storing up the oil and selling it back for this and for that. With the case of the United States, you can buy gas from the independent companies, that no-name companies and so forth, and you'll see there's a big savings on that. I know what I'm saying. A big, big savings on that. And you can buy gasohol, a huge savings on a huge amount of alcohol instead of gas in it. But some vehicles will not run well on it, and that's another thing. I know that's how it used. Now I know they've modified the vehicles a lot more with different computer chips in for the timing and so forth, that it can work better. But you have that choice there, where you can buy what they call gasohol. And again, it's mostly sold at independent stations where they can do as they feel like. They're not name branding any name brand on their station. They can sell anything. You have that.
But we're a price taker, right? I mean, we got to take it, right? I mean, we have very little influence on influencing the cost.
Well, the thing is this. What I'm saying is that shipment is here. It's been here. It's in the ground and so forth. But suddenly, if the price goes up, it goes up here. Do you understand what I'm saying? They've already paid for this. It's not like you're bringing in some clothes next week. It's going to be this. But right now, it's at the shelf. The duty is paid X amount of dollars on what you don't have.
But as
it can't be raised until the next shipment comes.
Right.
This is my point. But I don't know the method of payment. It may be on,
Well, let's we did have, if I may, we did have the conversation just earlier, and as they.
I didn't hear it.
Yes, sir. And as they. No, that's fine. You're busy with your.
Give an explanation as to why.
Yes, sir. So they shared that that the price of the duty on gas is 75 cents, as you know, on a gallon. On diesel is 85, and they shared that some of the large fuel companies would either use the weighted average, some would use the first in first out method, and when it comes in, the duties are calculated based on the volume of so if it's 1 million gallons.
Yeah, it's rated on gallon is not ad valorem.
Right. And so they're monitoring how much this comes in, and but in the Cayman marketplace, there are no price controls, as you know, and then the prices are somewhat driven by market forces.
Yeah, but I mean it's already here, so it's not a matter of this shipment. The price has gone up on a tank of 10, 15 tankers just went in at so much, $160 a barrel. And this price was delivered at $110 a barrel. So this is my point. Why raise it? No, but like I said, the oil companies are very, very powerful. And as I was trying to say the other day on the radio, the most powerful weapon are the number one weapon in the world, and we see it every day with what's playing out with the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad, lives are going, but it's money. It's all money controls it.
Yes,
As
sir.
I said, when the Russians say we have had it, the ordinary Russian people, we can't go back to living this, pauperization way. Now we've been exposed to democracy. Now have Russian billionaires the last 30 years and so. So therefore, they cut this war out so we can get back our supplies from the West. And this is it. And they'll pressure that man to stop. They'll pressure him to stop, because it's no good we getting into an all-out big war, losing thousands and thousands of people on either side, and to solve what? And you won't come to any solution that way either. Not now. So the point I'm making is with the money thing and these powerful companies controlling so much money. At least the United States has those laws where, you cannot be so big that split you up and so forth. But still they get together at board of directors meeting and say, you have this company, you have that one. Take some money and put it here, some offshore thing, and put it that there and wash it and that. And that's it. It's all about money. But I don't still see any reason for it to be raised when it's already in the ground here under that price that it came in on. But then again, like I say, money-wise, they'll explain their way out of it.
Yes, sir.
Have a wonderful day, sir.
And to you, sir. Thank you, too. Bye. Thank you for sharing with us. And with that, maybe let's leave you with a couple of points. Friend shared this and said, it takes nothing to join the crowd. It takes everything to stand alone. And that reminds me of U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt's, comment way back when that was often quoted by many of us. It goes like this. It talks about the man in the arena. It says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Well, what is it to say? You should stand for something or you fall for anything. Maybe it comes to that place where we as a people decide to stand together collectively with a sense of love and unity, bringing together our strengths, our collective talents, our treasure, to utilize our time so that constructively we produce positive, profound, meaningful, lasting impact on our society, so that the quality of life that we enjoy now is improved, but for those who come after, even better, whose actions showed great deference to those who've gone before, respecting and valuing their service and their sacrifice. Together we make this a better place. Perhaps we're taking too much for granted, the fact that we can all assemble in public and enjoy ourselves. We can sit privately at a dinner table somewhere in the backyards or in the best setting by the seaside without fear that we will be robbed, killed, kidnapped, or somehow harassed. And yet, look around us. Is that changing? Do we still see the sense of safety? What about those of us who are out riding their bikes and exercising? Do we feel safe because the drivers are careful and considerate? Or do we feel safe because we're exercising and not going to be accosted? But what about those who are? Those endeavors and attempts that have transpired in the past, have they been met with an equal sense of justice and punishment meted against the offenders? Or have we turned a blind eye and say, but it wasn't us, that was them, what happened there? Well, Scripture says, that which we do unto the least of them, we do unto me. Maybe we need to be our brother's keeper. Maybe we need to be reminded that the golden rule is, do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Not who has the goal or the gun makes the rule. And maybe that is what many have shared recently. There's the greed and avarice that we seemingly champion. The more we have, the more we want, and perhaps the better we believe we are. Once said that the man who carries the gun carries with him a false sense of security. a sense of ego compensating for what is in fact a great sense of insecurity. But maybe once, it was the pen that was mightier than the sword, but as I will share with you, you can never erase the spoken word. So let that word be one that is empowering, uplifting, one that's positive and nurturing, one that not just castigates, but one that chastises, corrects, and orders up a great sense of community. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And